Okay, orbital mass presenting sign of underlying malignancy, clinical and pathological features and outcome. There are no relevant financial interests. What we know is that almost 13% of all orbital tumors are actually metastatic in nature. And up to 5% of all cancer patients during the course of their therapy develop orbital metastasis, which is typically by the hematogenous route. Large series have put the mean survival in this group of patients with orbital metastasis to be 15.6 months. But less than 15% of the cases with orbital metastasis have a previously known diagnosis, which means that the orbital lesion is the presenting feature in 15%. But what we don't know is how common is it in developing countries, what are the symptoms, what's the most common primary that is throwing up these metastases, and the outcomes. So in an attempt to describe these clinical features, outcomes amongst patients who presented with metastasis, orbital metastasis as the first sign of underlying malignancy, this paper was conceived. In this retrospective review, we saw 30 cases of orbital metastasis, of which 10 cases had no prior history of cancer, which meant that these 10 cases, the orbital lesion was the presenting symptom. The total follow-up for the entire cohort was 7.9 months. After thorough investigations in these 10 patients, the lung was the most common primary, followed by the breast, prostate, gallbladder, and colon. There was a male to female ratio of 2:3, and the mean age at presentation was 68. The most common presenting complaint was proptosis, followed by diplopia, pain, swelling, and vision reduction. The mean duration from initial orbital symptom to diagnosis of the metastasis was 2.2 months. And by the time PET-CT staging was done, the mean number of involved metastatic sites was 3. Surprisingly, 7 out of 10 patients had no systemic complaints suggestive of a primary tumor that they had. 1 patient each had lower back pain, constipation, and severe headache. 8 out of 10 patients underwent incisional biopsy to confirm the diagnosis. 1 patient, after PET-CT, the surgeon decided to take up for an exploratory laparotomy, which confirmed the gallbladder primary. 1 patient, CSF analysis and PET-CT was done, which were conclusive for breast cancer, which was then operated primarily. 10 patients underwent chemo, 4 radiation, 3 underwent surgery of the primary tumor. And in spite of this aggressive multimodal management, 8 patients died due to disease. And in this cohort of 8 patients who died due to disease, the duration between diagnosis to death was 5.8 months only. A few index cases, a 2-month-old history of proptosis, diplopia, and pain in the right eye. Imaging shows a variegated intraconal and extraconal mass. We did an incisional biopsy and it turned out to be a melanoma. Our working diagnosis was a melanoma of the orbit, but PET-CT showed disseminated cutaneous and bony mets, with the primary being in the colon. So this was a primary melanoma of the rectum or the colorectal region, which had an orbital metastasis. This was a male who presented with diplopia, pain, and proptosis for 3 months, treated elsewhere as myocystic sarcosis. You can see a superomedial necrotic mass in the orbit. An incisional biopsy showed it to be a primary adenocarcinoma of the lung. Again, the patient had metastasis spread to multiple spots. This was a patient who was referred as a lacrimal gland tumor with a 3-month history of pain, double vision, and proptosis. You can see that the mass is infiltrating the extraocular muscles as well as the lacrimal gland and the surrounding bone. The incisional biopsy showed it to be a breast carcinoma. You can see that the metastasis had reached the spine and the liver. So literature like this series from Garrity shows that the mean survival in cancer patients who were diagnosed with orbital mets was almost 31 months, which is a significant variation from what we have seen. In our case, it was only 5.8 months. Similarly, Magliozzi and colleagues had a large series in which 1/3 patients like ours had no known primary. And they found no significant difference in survival between patients who had a known primary versus who did not have a known primary at the time of diagnosis. The same finding was confirmed by the last large series on orbital mets by Shah and colleagues, where again they found no significant difference. But in our series, those 20 who had a previous known diagnosis of cancer, the survival was 12.3 months compared to the patients in whom the orbital lesion was the presenting symptom, where survival was 5.8 months with a significant difference. Age and gender were not significant factors affecting this outcome. Imaging features included diffuse infiltrating lesions seen in 7 cases. The mass was unencapsulated in 6 cases. Bony erosion was seen in 3 cases. Is there a reason for us to now change our protocol in approaching? Possible. The red flags that we need to look for are recent onset abaxial proptosis, diplopia, pain with the lack of inflammation. If there is no inflammation, perhaps we should think in terms of orbital metastasis. To summarize, systemic malignancies presenting as orbital masses are common. They typically have poor prognosis and more metastatic site involvement. PET-CT staging is ideal, and we should have a low threshold for biopsy. Red flags include recent onset diplopia, painful proptosis, and thank you so much for your time.
Dr. Akshay, it's a nice presentation. Actually, I wanted to know, like, there's a documented fact that orbital metastasis has a poor prognosis, and lung cancer is the commonest cause of metastasis in male, and breast is the commonest cause of orbital metastasis in female. So, but this study has added new to the literature, already published.
It is shown that, yeah, so there is no data on the mean number of metastatic sites that are involved at the time of orbital presentation. All 30 patients actually in our case underwent PET-CT and staging, and the mean number of metastatic sites involved was 3. That for many cases is able to give us a prognosis of only palliative treatment. The second thing is that the 3 largest series of orbital metastasis, they have all pegged their survival to be ranging from 12 to 31 months. But in our series, it was far lesser. It was only 5.8 months from diagnosis to death. So what we are saying is that in our series, we are seeing far more aggressive, far more later presentation. Later presentation means more metastatic sites being involved, which obviously means shorter survival following diagnosis.
Okay, and before subjecting all these patients to incision biopsy, a systemic evaluation was done, or once a histopathological report came, they confirmed the diagnosis of orbital metastasis, then after that they were subjected to systemic evaluation? Or
yes, systemic evaluation was done in the sense, except PET-CT, a physician's fitness was obtained prior to surgery to make sure that they were fit for surgery. And typically, like we saw, 7 out of 10 patients had no systemic complaints. So it was unlikely that these lesions pop up in a pre-anesthetic checkup. But once the incisional biopsy confirmed the diagnosis, all 10 patients underwent PET-CT staging along with an oncologist, and then they were referred for their management there.
thank you.
Based on your study, Dr. Nair, can it be recommended that all orbital lesions or suspected patients with orbital lesions need to undergo PET-CT?
That would probably be an overkill because we still don't know the positive diagnostic yield of PET-CT in all orbital cases. See, what we know is that up to 10% of all orbital masses are metastatic. So subjecting the remaining 90% to PET-CT may not really be useful. So those red flags can help us in diagnosing the ones in whom PET-CT is needed: acute onset proptosis, pain, a loss of vision, and absence of inflammation.
Right. Thank you so much.